Hello and welcome to day 2 of the Ollie Bomber Jacket Sew Along from Sew a Little Seam. My name is Trissa and I am your host. Today is a good day because we are only sewing the main construction of our jacket. This is a great day to catch up if you still have not yet sewn your pockets. But if you did, congratulations. You have either done a beautiful kangaroo pocket or tackled your welt pocket. Again, if you have any questions about either of those, feel free to leave comments, and then we can always answer questions, or I can do anything more in depth for you later. But anyway, so what we're going to do today, or at least start off with today, is sew the shoulder seams, sew the sleeves on, and the side seams, as well as the waistband to get us prepped and ready to sew our zipper on tomorrow. So basically what you're going to start off with, you want to get your back piece, make sure it's right side up, and then we're going to line up our front pieces, right sides together, and we're going to start by sewing our shoulder seams. Again, remember that we are sewing a 3/8 inch seam allowance unless stated otherwise in the pattern. So go ahead and sew your shoulder seams for your lining and your main, and then we will come back after that. Okay, so now we should have our shoulder seams sewn for our main and our lining, unless you are like me and you are doing dark and a lighter fabric. I'm going to be sewing my lining with my white thread, and then when I'm done I'm going to switch to darker thread for my main. So I'm going to be skipping all my dark blue ones for now. But anyway, so once you have your lining or your main shoulder seams sewn, we are going to do this sew on the sleeves. If you have not yet marked your sleeve, you can go ahead and do that now. For the kids version, you just need to fold it in half and put a pin or a marker at the center mark. If you are doing the women's version, you're going to need your pattern piece, because there is a mark at the top for where it's going to line up with the center seam. You can use a marking pin or you can use a pin. I always like to put a pin where that line is on the pattern piece, and then I just put a pin randomly marking the front. That way I know which sleeve is which. So we'll start off by pinning the sleeves. Okay, so when I sew my sleeves on, I like to start off by pinning right sides together, pinning the center seam. I always like to push my seam line or my seam towards the back. You can do it however you choose, but that's just what I like to do. So I start off by pinning the shoulder seam, the center, for the kids version. If you're doing the women's, you will match your pin or your notch with the center seam, and then pinning the two ends together. And so you have it like this. I personally think it's easier to pin your sleeves with this after you do these 3 pins, to pin the rest of it with your sleeve on the bottom and your top on the top. I just think it's a lot easier. You can see the sleeve a lot easier, so you can stretch it and pin it on. And so we'll go ahead and pin that in place. See, now that one is all nice and pinned. And then we'll go ahead and do that to the other side. For the women's version, we are going to be doing the exact same thing, except we are going to be using that pin or marker to line up to the shoulder seam. And then I put this extra pin here just to tell me that this side needs to be on the front, which is right here. But we're going to do the same way where we pin it in these 3 spots, flip it over, and then pin it the rest of the way. Now you should have your sleeves sewn on, like so. So now we're going to sew up the side seams, basically just pinning right side together, your sleeves together, matching up your sleeve seam, and then continue pinning down the rest of the side seam. We're going to be sewing again with the 3/8 seam allowance and do that for both sides, and your main and your lining if you're doing a lining version, and then we will come back after we sew all those up. Once you sew your side seams, you basically have a jacket shell, obviously no hood and the zipper, so you can see how beautiful. Sorry, it looks a little silly with my pregnant belly. It'll look better once I get rid of this thing. But look, got a nice kangaroo pocket. Pretty sweet. So if you are doing a lined version, take your lining and your lining and go ahead and set those aside. We do not need them anymore until we are done installing our zipper. However, if you are doing if I can find my pieces. If you are doing the unlined, if you're doing the lined version, we need our waistband. I actually don't need that one because I'm not doing that one yet. I need the red one. So here's our wonderful jacket. So go ahead and open up your jacket and get your waistband piece. So for the lined version, we are going to find the quarter points. You do that just by folding your waistband in half, marking that spot with the pin, and then folding your corners back to the center and marking with the pin to find your quarter points. Then we're going to do the same thing with the jacket. Also, if you have not yet marked your waistband, we're going to need to mark it at the center. So you can either do that now or after you sew your waistband on, but I'm just going to go ahead and mark it with a pin because this is where our zipper is going to be ending. So make sure you mark the middle of your waistband with a pin. So once that is all pinned, we are going to do the same thing for our jacket, main. So I just match up the side seams together to find the center and go ahead and mark that with a pin. And then double check. Sometimes the side seam does not necessarily always isn't always the quarter point, just like a shoulder seam isn't always the quarter point in when you're sewing on a neckband. However, in this case, our side seams for the children's version, at least for this one, is matching up with my quarter points. So now we are going to match up our pins, right sides together. Also, in the instructions, it does tell you to press your seams a specific direction. I'm a cheater and I don't ever do that. However, if your seams are bulky and or if your material does press well, you can go ahead and do it. I'm a rebel and I skip it, so yeah, I did not press any of my seams. But anyway, you can go ahead and do that if you like. It tells you which way to do it in the instructions. But then obviously once you pin your quarter points, you pin the end to the end here. And so now we're going to slightly stretch. See how it's the waistband is slightly smaller, so we're just going to slightly stretch the waistband to fit the body, and then we're going to continue pinning and doing that all the way around, and then we're going to go ahead and sew our waistband. So once you finish pinning this all the way down, go ahead and stitch it on, and then we'll come back. Okay, now we have our waistband sewn on the bottom. So that means you are all done for the day. If you are doing the regular collared version, that's it. We're just sewing on the waistband, and then we will do zippers tomorrow. However, if you are doing the hooded version, then you can take a peek at the next video. I'm gonna go over sewing the hood together. But yeah, so if you're just doing the collared version, go ahead and you're done. So, and we'll see you tomorrow. But now I'm going to go over the lining, or the unlined version. It's basically the same thing. We're going to find our quarter points on our jacket main. But for this time instead, we're going to take our waistband piece and we're going to fold it in half to start. And I like to pin my waistband all the way down, just because it keeps it nice and together. And then we're gonna find our quarter points on our waistband and the quarter points on our jacket. So we'll go ahead and do that, and then we'll come right back. Okay, now you should have your waistband on. Remember, since you're doing the unlined version, we should have folded it in half before we sewed it on. So now your waistband is finished, and so the next step, what we're going to do is take our cuff piece and we're going to put it right sides together, and then sew 3/8 seam allowance, like so. See, I already did it. Ha. And then we're gonna flip it wrong sides together, matching up your seams. And then we're gonna sew this to our sleeve. I like to, sometimes I do quarter points on sleeves, sometimes I don't. It really just depends. It's up to you. Sometimes I do it on leg cuffs just because they're usually longer, but But I definitely like to find the halfway point on both my cuff and my sleeve. And then do the same thing on my mane, and just match up the seams together, and then match up your pins for the center, and then we're going to sew this together, right sides together, again with a 3/8 inch seam allowance, and do this for both. We're going to be doing this for both sleeves. If I can get it pinned on. And once you pin these two on, then you're going to slightly stretch it to match, and then sew that on. I find it easiest for sewing cuffs on if you sew with your foot inside of the hole. So sewing with your foot in here. I personally like to have the pretty stitches, the top stitches of the serger on the outside of the, I guess, the outside of the inside of the cuff. So once I have this all pinned, I'm just gonna flip it inside out and then sew the cuff in this way and sew all the way around. So go ahead and do that. So pin your two cuffs on and then sew them together, and then you're done, but we'll come back after we do that. Now we should have our cuffs sewn on both of our sleeves, and we have our waistband sewn on. So now our jacket is pretty much done. If you're doing the unlined version, we just need to add the zipper, which we will do that tomorrow. And then if you are going to be doing the collared version, there's nothing else you need to do today. You are all set. If you are going to do the hooded version, stay tuned for the next video, because I'm going to go over sewing your hood together and getting that all prepped and ready for tomorrow, when we'll attach it after we attach the zipper. But for now, that's it. I hope you have a great rest of your day. If you have any questions, please feel free to post a comment on the daily blog post, the daily post in the Sew Little Seam Facebook group, or you can go ahead and leave a comment here on this video. But I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you later. Bye.